with so much like uncertainty, it just made sense to stay put until okay, let's figure out the long-term play. I don't want to keep moving for no reason, you know?
No, it makes sense. Especially why waste money moving out here until you know you're going to be out here?
And then you get hired in New York, and then
I never understood. I'm never the guy that can just up and move to LA and say I'll figure it out when I get there. No, I need a reason to be there
because you're smart.
That. Yeah,
that's the smart move.
Yeah,
I learned the hard way with that.
I mean, everybody out here did that.
We are
live.
Okay, let's do it.
And we're rolling.
All righty, let's just get into it then.
Yeah.
So basically, we'll just. Do you want to intro this? And then because we're going to end up go back, record some more stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's just do it. Joe, I'm very excited for our guest today. I've been harassing this poor guy nonstop to get him on our show since I met him a couple months ago. 7-year NFL vet, two-time Grey Cup. Champ, ESPN analyst, actor, current host of the Tomahawk Show. He's doing it all. Andrew Hawkins, welcome to the Dirty Sports Podcast.
Appreciate you guys having me. Appreciate it. And it wasn't you weren't nagging me. I just wanted it. I understood the potential of this interview, so I wanted it to be the best it could be, and I didn't think phone did it justice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's great having you here. I know Andy was a little bit extra excited because we always take pictures after the show with athletes, and he said it multiple times this morning. He's like, "This will be the first time I'm taller than our guest."
Yes.
Nothing against you, Hawk.
No, it's hey.
Yeah. Certainly nothing against
you have to pick your reasons to be special, and that just happens to be the reason why I'm special. I'm extremely short for a professional athlete.
I mean, it's incredible. Like, I want to start there.
You're incredibly short. Yeah,
but
it's amazing.
A lot of people always. I'm one of those guys. I mean, I'm 6'4",
right,
and 100, probably 185, 190 pounds. I'm like, oh, I'm a wide receiver build, like. If only I was fast. If only I had athletic ability. You know what I mean? But you're a guy like when I watch you play, it was like amazing that you're a kind of guy who makes me feel like you have no excuses. You're 5. How tall are you? 5'7"?
5'7", man.
I mean, to play in the NFL at wide receiver, at that size is incredible in itself.
No, I mean it was like
you're the best athlete. You know what I mean? Exactly. That's how it works.
Exactly. That's how I like to think about it. It's like that means I'm even better than the huge guy because it was that much harder for me to make it happen.
If AJ Green ran your routes and had your speed, it would have been a whole different world.
Whole different world.
Well, that's why I was excited when I met you because being a guy from Cincinnati, you got to play. I mean, you played, and I somehow forgot that. I forgot some of the guys. Of course, I knew AJ Green, but on that 2014 Bengals team.
Yes.
It was you. Listen to this wide receiver core, Praino.
2013 Bengals team.
Okay, 2013. That's right. 2014 playoffs.
Yep.
It's Hawk, AJ Green, Mohamed Sanu.
Mm-hmm.
You had Marvin Jones.
I've heard of all of those guys.
I mean, that's just the receiving core.
Imagine that. That's nuts to think about right now. Because at the time it wasn't like we thought that as a core. It was like, man, we're pretty good. Like, there's really not much drop-off, and we kind of have every kind of receiver you want. We had, like, the physical guy and the short-handed guy who could play in and out with Mo. We had Marvin outside, speed guy, can run all the routes, and probably should be a number one guy. We had the future Hall of Famer in A.J. Green that we kind of all knew early on that he was that kind of guy. You got me, who is the short, quick slot guy, and we were like, yo, we're special. We felt like more people should have been talking about us, and they weren't, and we never got the credit. Well, now there's not enough cap in any of the teams to get that kind of core together in the NFL.
Yeah.
So we kind of underachieved a little bit, not by any.
I mean, you guys.
It wasn't our fault, but
you guys were all young, and now you see all those guys move on to other teams and be more like head guys, and you're like, wow,
exactly
those four now. I always love, thinking about receiving cores like that, like you guys being in practice together.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a game, like you said, people look across the league and they're like, yeah, they're sneaky good or whatever. But when you're in practice, what's it like when you have four guys? You're all kind of still competing for snaps and catches and looks and all that. Like, are you competing?
It was weird. Like usually it is. I've been in like teams where not that guys don't like each other, but it's a business. It's like when there's only one CEO or there's only one position for the chief operating officer, like there's like a competition, like it's either me or you kind of thing, and that's how it is in football. There can only be one number one receiver.
Yeah,
there can only be one guy who was getting the majority of the ball, but we didn't have that. Like our thing was when we came in and we knew relatively quickly not only what kind of talent we had, but the personalities. Like they were great guys. In Cincinnati, you come from a world of the Ocho Cincos, the TOs, the guys that are like, I don't want to call them me guys because it's not it, but they have a little chip. They're a little diva.
There's some ego there.
They're superstars, and they should be. Sometimes you need that as a football player. But we were like 4 family guys who had wives and kids, and we didn't go out. And like we would get done with OTA practices at 1, and we'd be in the facility till 7, just sitting around talking or shooting hoops or lifting. And my brother, who played for the Bengals back in the Ocho days, and the wild west of Cincinnati days.
Oh, poor Artrell, man.
He was like, "Yo, this is the most boring receiving corps I've ever seen." Like, you guys,
somebody needs to change their name to
exactly
the mispronunciation of a Spanish number.
Was your brother? Your brother was after the Carl Pickens days.
He played with Carl Pickens.
Oh, he played with Carl.
He played with Carl Pickens, the early Ocho Cinco days. He was in from '98 to 2003, maybe, which was Marvin's first year.
You guys need statues in Cincinnati simply for playing for the Bengals.
Yeah.
I mean, because. Being a guy from Cincinnati, and I think we talked about this when I met you on the Now We're Talking set, that game, that's when I just stopped.
That's when you gave it up.
But that's the thing. I had been out here, 7 years, and I have such issues with Mike Brown, the Bengals owner.
Yeah.
And then that game, I was actually in Cincinnati. You guys lose to the Chargers. Tough game. Dalton has 3 turnovers, and I remember I was so critical of Dalton. I'll just be honest. I've been critical of Dalton.
Right.
And when I met you, you were like, you put more of that on John Gruden, or I'm sorry,
that game.
Jay Gruden.
Yeah, and Jay is my guy, but
okay.
If I was going to err on the side of that game, it was the game plan. Not that it was the whole game plan's fault. I used to tell Andy, and he's gotten better. And people were hard on Andy in Cincinnati, and I get it. It's football. Like if you're not the best, or it doesn't matter if you're the best, because people are critical of Tom Brady.
Sure.
People will, say Tom Brady cost us the Super Bowl because he dropped that pass. It's sports. But back then, I used to tell Andy, like, yo, man, you gotta start throwing your weight around here. You're the quarterback, but you're taught in football, like, do as the coaches tell you, and that's good to be a team guy. But at some point, you have to start not only taking ownership, and not just when it's your quote unquote fault, but like being proactive about it. So I would tell him we would go into games where he might not like a play, right? Jay might love a play, or Hugh or whatever, whoever the offensive coordinators might love a play. And Andy on a Monday would be like, yeah, I don't feel good about that play. Tuesday, I don't feel good about that play. We run it Wednesday, doesn't look great. Thursday, he's iffy on it, whatever. My thing was like, yo, Andy, throw the play out. Well, they want to. I don't care who wants to run the play. You're the quarterback. Because when you throw a pick 6, no one's going to say, oh, man, he didn't like that play on Monday. Because nobody knows that. So if you're not comfortable with the play, why the hell are we running it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what they'll get pissed off at you, but they'll be happy we're winning games because you're running plays you're comfortable with. And he was just young in that time and doing whatever was asked of him because that's just his personality. And I always wanted him to be like, yo, you got to think more about yourself because sometimes, like, you get the stigma of being selfish, but sometimes thinking about yourself actually helps the team. And we were just early on in that process and in that game and in that year where sometimes he just wouldn't be comfortable with things. And it's not really Jay's fault because Jay is an offensive coordinator. I want to run the plays I'm comfortable with that I think you're best at. And then Andy, but ultimately you're the one taking the snaps. So
also you got to be on the same page too.
Yeah, and it's tough.
A play is destined to fail if people are tentative about it.
Exactly. And the last thing a quarterback can do is kind of get that being gun shy. Right, and plays, and they're not gonna work. So I wouldn't put that. I think Cincinnati fan base in general is harder on Andy Dalton than they should be.
You think?
And maybe it's because I also grew up a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
And I remember the 2-win seasons and the 3-win seasons and the starting 2-0 then dropping 14 straight and them not knowing which way is up. And I've heard the stories about guys playing drunk, or guys not giving a damn about football, not training at all in the entire offseason, like deciding, you know what, I'm not gonna come back till camp. And I don't think that's the climate. Sometimes you get, kind of a spoil of riches. Now that we go to the playoffs 5 years in a row, it's like, man, Andy can't win the big one.
Yeah.
But you don't think about the fact that you were crying yourself to sleep when Carson Palmer was threatening retirement. And, there's no way Andy Dalton's going to help. We suck again because Carson Palmer's not coming to camp.
Do you think, though, the situation in Cincinnati, obviously, like you're saying, people forget the awful days that I vividly remember as a
Right.
kid.
Mhm.
And then Marvin Lewis takes the team to the next level, to perennial playoff team. But obviously, Marvin hasn't been able to then take them to the next step. Don't you think it's just one of those things where Marvin changed the culture, he changed the climate, but they need someone else in there to then take them to the next level? Because after that Pittsburgh game, from my perspective, would be like, you need to change. It's nothing personal against Marvin.
Right.
Because we're coming on, 25, 26, 27 years. I mean, it's the point. I just don't think that the Bengals are ever going to win a playoff game.
Yeah. No, and I understand. I get the perspective on that, but my I guess me going from Cincinnati to Cleveland, and I love Cleveland. I love the people, a part of Cleveland organization. Like, it's the tough years there, but the grass isn't always greener.
Yeah.
So you can try to say, Marvin, yes, he's changed the culture. It's time to go to the next step. What's the next step? How do you know the next step isn't 2-14 again for 4 years? How do you know the next step is you don't sniff the playoffs for another 12 years, or you get someone in there that wants to completely change the philosophy and you start going back to the Bengals of old?
Well, I guess that's the question, because you look at the Bengals now. I'm not a Bengals fan, but I've seen it seems like that's where it's trending. And you were there at a time when, we already talked about your receiving core, how talented they were, the backfield, the defense, like the talent was there.
Yeah.
People would regularly look at the Cincinnati Bengals for a few years and go, like, that's the most talented team in football across the board. And if it's trending where people aren't saying that anymore, like, why was the window missed, I guess?
Yeah, I think because I don't want to say we lucked up into it, but the way we acquired that talent was not a little unorthodox in the way that people think now, right? Because we have some guys that had some character concerns.
Right.
And Cincinnati is never shy about giving those guys an opportunity, because the reality is we're not asking you to come in here and, represent our country against other world diplomats. No, you're playing football.
Right.
So if you can tackle, if you can catch, if you can throw, we can give you a shot. And as long as you don't do anything extremely stupid while you're here, we'll figure it out from there.
It's a little harder to get in trouble in Cincinnati than some other places.
It's a little harder, it's not much
people
going
find
on
a way,
there.
but
I don't know, man. Those late nights at Skyline Chili.
But I think that's it. It's like, I remember when I got to camp from Canada, Jay wasn't super excited about me, and he'll say that, like, yo, he was coming from the UFL. He was like, yo, I got UFL guys that if we're gonna take a secondary league player, give me one who's not 5'6", right?
Yeah.
But over time, I grew on him, and I was able to show that I was a pretty good professional football player, and he was happy about that. And you luck out and get a guy like that who eventually ends up leading an NFL team in receiving. You get a Marvin Jones in the 5th round, right? And who also ends up leading an NFL team in receiving. You get a Mo Sanu, who they pranked him that he was drafted to the Bengals in the 1st round, and he ended up actually coming there, and he ended up leading an NFL team in receiving one year. You get a Vontaze Burfict, who, yes, he has his on-field problems, but he's always had his on-field problems, which is why he was undrafted.
He's a stud.
But the fact that you can't tell me going back to that draft, someone's not going to say, yo, to hell with that. Draft him in the 1st round. Draft him in the 2nd round, because when it comes to football playing, he's a football player. You revitalized the career of Adam Pac-Man Jones, who is really an athletic freak. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to be playing at the level he is at, 33 years old, and all the problems he's had. So you luck into these guys, or the Carlos Dunlaps, who, right before the draft, he's caught sleep getting a DUI in college. Well, now he's a candidate for Man of the Year every season, because he does so much in the community, and he's developed into an incredible leader. So I think they just kind of lucked up into having that kind of talent on a team. And sometimes when it happens that fast, maybe you're unprepared and you don't realize it, because the reality is we can't keep everyone because they are so talented.
Right.
But on the other end, you really don't know how good they are until probably time goes on. Like going back to that receiving core, you would have loved to have locked everyone up for $2 million a year and just say, okay, now we have our receiving core that's locked in.
Yeah. It's almost like everything has to come together at absolutely the right time.
Yeah, and it's tough.
I mean, you talk about Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton, in a way, it's a double-edged sword. Like, he's gotten a bad rap, maybe deserved in some part, maybe undeserved, but you got to remember, he came into the league and was performing right away. Are those teams different if they have a 12-year vet at quarterback? Maybe, but then you don't have money for other places. Like, you were doing, you got to a certain level with Andy Dalton when he was a little green, and he wasn't saying, I don't like this play. He wasn't a 15-year NFL vet at quarterback can say, I don't like it, and it's out.
But the thing is, even Andy, I'm not even going to act like Andy is a game manager.
Right.
People say that. I don't believe it. I think it's wrong. I don't think Carson Palmer is better than Andy Dalton. I don't. And a lot of people say that. Nothing against Carson. Carson's an incredible quarterback.
Yeah.
But if you go apples to apples, pick any 7 years in Carson's career, his numbers don't match Andy Dalton. And you can say, oh, because there's so much talent around him. Andy Dalton came in and he won 9 games with Sed Benson at running back. A.J. Green was a rookie. Andre Caldwell, Jerome Simpson. Those aren't perennial Pro Bowlers. Those aren't Marvin Jones, Mo Sanu.
Yeah.
Like, eventually those guys developed into what they are. But when he came in, that wasn't the case. And I remember Andy's first game, he got hurt in the second quarter. And I remember thinking, like, oh, this dude is soft, man. He's gonna be hurt every game. First game he's tapped out. The dude didn't miss a game for like another 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So I think he's tougher than people think. I think, the year that Hugh Jackson had him, it was a perfect marriage, and the offense catered to him perfectly, and he was like, he had an MVP style season. I just don't think you've had that offensive coordinator for that perfect match, and it's so important. It's the reason Matt Ryan was MVP. Not because I think Matt Ryan is a top 5 quarterback, because I don't. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's good. I think he's like Andy Dalton. But when you get the right offensive coordinator who says, okay, this is your talent and we're going to play to it, that's when you have it. You can't have a guy in there or offensive coordinators in there that say, yo, this is my offense and you're going to run it, because it doesn't work that way. It's not a plug and play. Like, that's a recipe for disaster.
I think everything you've talked about so far is something that people don't really understand, is the level of talent between the best guy and the worst at the same.
Yes.
In the NFL is not that big a gap.
No.
And it's right place, right time. I always say the first thing I look at when I'm judging a quarterback is, could they win a Super Bowl?
Right.
Like, could they do it? Do I trust with everything right in the situation that they could get it done? And I think Andy Dalton, right out of the gate, proved winning games right up front that you're like, oh, they could.
Yeah.
He could. But then it's right place, right time. And everybody's a little too,
It's all bullshit, man. I mean, we'll all have opinions. We'll all say whatever. And it's like, it changes. Now Nick Foles is God's gift to football. You know what I mean? Where the dude couldn't get a job 9 months ago. So you're not going to tell me Nick Foles is better than Andy Dalton. I love Nick Foles. I love what he's done. I was very critical of him and his ability to get it done, and he shut guys like me up. But the reality is, like, it doesn't change my mind that he's not better than Andy Dalton. But, like, now we love him. He'll get paid, and he should, because he's earned it, because when the lights were on, he performed. But that's all it is. Like, it's simple as that.
So who's your top 5? You said you don't have Matt Ryan in your top 5.
Yeah.
Right now, if I said to you, who's your top 5 quarterbacks heading into the 2018 NFL season?
Yeah. It would probably be, I'd go Brady, Aaron Rodgers. I'd go Breeze. I'd go Russell Wilson. I'd go Carson Wentz. And if we extended it, I would go Cam Newton. I would go Cam Newton. I like Derek Carr. I think he's going to be lighted up with Gruden.
Yeah.
I think
I'm with you.
His ability is, like, incredible. And I don't think we've seen it yet.
You know what I love? It looks like we got Team Russ over here. I'm big Russell Wilson.
Yeah, me too. I'm big Russell Wilson.
I'm big Russell.
Yes.
We've had some, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole again.
But
we've had some heated debates over Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I'm in.
And I think you look at this year's Seahawks team, I think you remove him and you put just an average quarterback, they win 4 games.
Yeah. Here's what I think. And this is how I determine it. I look at a quarterback. There's, like, certain things I look for to, like, judge. One of them is, when I'm watching the game, do they care the most to win, right? And, like, when you watch a game, when you watch demeanor, when you watch the way they do it, it has to look like and feel like that of everyone else on the field, the guy who wants to win the most is the quarterback. And all those guys I named you, when you watch them, you could tell by the way they do it. It's not an ego thing. It's like, yo, I'm trying to win this game. I'm going to do whatever the hell I have to win it. And guys around them feel that. That's number 1. Number 2, I want to be able to take a quarterback and put him on any team and him still be that same guy. And I feel like if you're a quote-unquote elite guy, that's what you like. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers at all 32. Right. Tom Brady is Tom Brady at all 32. Drew Brees is Drew Brees at all 32, so on and so forth. And I feel like Russell Wilson is that same guy. Russell Wilson is still Russell Wilson, no matter what team you put him on. The next level of guys, I still think they're above average quarterbacks and they're good. And that's the kind of pocket I'd put Matt Ryan in. But I don't think he's not the MVP Matt Ryan we've seen with Shanahan without him. Or he's not going to go to Cleveland right in this year and be the same guy. Whereas the rest of those guys, they're 11-win guys, 10-win guys, playoff teams, contenders, no matter where you put them on God's green earth. And I think that's what makes the difference.
And you got to play with Brady. You signed with the Pats, and
Yep.
then basically decided you were going to retire a few
Yep.
months later.
I didn't see them win the Super Bowl. I thought, you know what, Nick Foles is going to come in. And, you know what, this isn't. So I tried to get on the Eagles. It didn't work. I retired.
You should have said you'd play D-back for them. That's what you
Exactly.
should have done. You're like, I'm 5'7".
Yeah.
Like,
I know all the routes.
Hell,
Yeah.
it could have been the Hawkins brothers. You could have got your brother out of
Yeah,
retirement.
we just bring it all back together.
You guys would have played way better than the secondary in that Super Bowl. So you played with Brady for a hot minute. What was that like?
He's a maniac. He's a maniac, and I know the Tom versus Time documentary came out recently, and it kind of showed that.
Yeah.
But before that, I was trying to let everybody know, like, yo, this dude is crazy. Like, you know he's a competitor. You know he's the best of all time. But when you're there, I don't want to use the wrong words, but it's like, yo, damn, he loves this. Not the most. He loves this too much, almost. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's a guy that, you know, I'm human. I'm a competitor. I work hard. I pride myself in no matter what the situation, no matter what I'm a part of, I want to leave it in a better situation than I found it, right? Because that's like my reputation. That's my calling card. So I work my butt off no matter what. Whether I want to be there, whether I don't, whether I care about it or don't, you're going to get one guy all the time. Tom Brady is that times 100. Like, he doesn't – I just try to put myself in other people's situation. Like, if I'm making $20 million a year and my wife is making $20 million a year and I have 5 Super Bowls and I'm already regarded as the best of all time, like, there's going to be some level of, I don't need to do this. I've done this in my sleep. I've done it for 16 years. That's okay, because I've already had it. There's already certain things that I like as a professional by the time I was 30 that I didn't need to practice anymore. You know, I knew when it was man or zone. That wasn't something I could diagnose that just by looking at a DB's eyes and see where his eyes are. If he's not looking me in my face, it's not man-to-man, because when it's man-to-man, I know you're scared. You're scared I'm going to give you the business, and I can kind of tell in your demeanor. So little stuff like that, I just don't have to work on. Tom's not like that. He's in a corner working on drops that an undrafted rookie from, you know, San Diego State would be working on just to try to make the practice squad. And it's like all football with him all the time. And his just level of give a damn is just so much higher. And I couldn't understand why it was so high, because you already have literally everything. And to me, it was like, he's almost chasing a ghost. He's chasing the ghost of Tom Brady. Almost like when you're in competition with yourself, you only can keep raising the bar, and it just never stops.
I think the thing with Tom Brady that's always been so impressive is like the evolution of Tom Brady. You know, we talk about 6-rounder. We talk about he's a backup. He comes in. He gets it done. It's not like he was Peyton Manning where that's like number 1 overall pick.
Right.
You're going to be the guy.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about kind of Andy Dalton in his younger days. I feel like Tom Brady, he must have had to work that way from day one.
Yes.
And then so it's now that's just how he works out. That's just what he does.
It's just a different
It's kind
level.
of a double, you know, it's kind of like it worked out for him because he had to do it as a 6-rounder, and now he's still that guy in year 18
crazy.
or whatever.
You can see what kind of people, like what people's goals are in life. So with this podcast, right? Like you guys, your goal wasn't 1,000 listeners.
You
right?
used to have Andrew Hawkins on. So
you know,
today's
like
the mic drop.
So
day.
after today,
that's it.
We'll
Shut
see
it
what
down.
you're really about.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're a professional athlete, it's the same way. Some guys go, like my goal was to play one game in the NFL, right? But I'm the same guy all the time. But I attained my goal 7 years ago. Like that was it. You know, everything else was icing on the cake. Now I didn't stop, and it didn't change who I was, just luckily because that's who I am. But my goal was attained back then. Some guys' goals are to make a lot of money. So that's why when you see guys get big contracts, sometimes the level of play and the intensity isn't the same because guess what? They accomplished their goal. Some guys' goal is to win a Super Bowl ring or an NBA championship. Like you look at the Cavaliers, and there's some players on that team that don't seem like the same players they were, 2 years ago when the Cavs won.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it was like, yo, I'm a champion now, and I'm good with that. Like I had that on my tagline forever. I got my money. I'm a champion. But then you look at guys like LeBron, and it's like, yo, LeBron's this, he's that. Well, guess what? LeBron's goal was never winning one championship. His goal was never winning two. He has to chase being the best, and the only way to be the best is to win 7. Tom Brady's goal wasn't 1 Super Bowl. It wasn't 2. It wasn't 3. It wasn't 4. It's not 5, 6, 7, 8. He wants to win probably 10 championships.
So then it's tougher for people to catch him.
So it's tough to catch him, and it's like there's guys in the locker room where my goal is this, and his goal is that, and it's just a different level. Like if you can't match where I'm going, you can't be a part of this. And I just think that's what you're seeing with Tom Brady. So it will never stop. He will never be satisfied because he's chasing a greatness that we don't even know is possible yet.
Do you think Belichick is on that same wavelength as far as the absolute, like you said, the craziness in a sense of how Brady is, of just it's winning? Because you've seen recent players come out recently saying it's not fun to play there, even though you're winning.
Right. And I would call that and say that I've heard players that love it. I'll give you an example. Johnson Batamosi was a guy. He's a special teamer. He's one of the guys who ended up going in and playing some defensive back. He's been a traditional special teamer, incredible special team player. I played with him in Cleveland, but he's a regimen guy. Like when we practiced in Cleveland, practice would be at 3. I could walk in the weight room every day at 5:50. He would be doing the same exact stretch every single day without 3 years in a row. It didn't matter. He was always doing that stretch or doing his routine because he understood that to be at his best, he had to go through certain things. That's what New England is. It's doing whatever the hell you have to do to be the best person you possibly can. I talked to him. He freaking loves it there. Like, to the point he's going into free agency, and he's like, yeah, I'll check wherever, but to be honest, I love New England. It's like, and he had like stars in his eyes. Like, he loves it. Like, there's players like that. Like I said.
Well, you just said there's guys whose goals to get paid. There's guys whose goals to live in Miami. There's guys whose goals that if you just want to win, go there because that's all Belichick cares about.
That's all he cares about.
If you care about something else, you're probably gone anyway.
And New England will tell you that.
Yeah.
When you come on your visit there, they say, look, this is not for everybody. It's simple as that. Like, we're not paying everybody max dollar because all we want is guys here who want to win. And if you're not into that, if you're into having fun, if you're quote unquote, hey, I want a mix of work and fun, this isn't the place for you. We don't pay you to have fun. There's no quote unquote fun incentives in your contract. We're here to win. And once you decide that that's no longer your number one goal, I don't care if you're a coach. I don't care if you're a personnel director. I don't care if you're a player, you're a lunch lady. This is no longer the place for you because that's the only thing we're interested in.
When you go in, I mean, you said all that like it was said to you, like when you were sitting there in the chair.
Yeah.
When somebody says that to you, what's your attitude to that?
How
do you feel?
I appreciate it. I wish I would have gone there a couple of years earlier, like when my body was a little more and better. It was a little better conditioned. It was like, my knees weren't hurting. I wasn't that's who I was in Cincinnati. That's who I was in Cleveland. There's not a player or a coach who will talk to you and say, yo, I remember this one day where Hawk came in and he just, he went through the motions. He didn't work hard and we had to get on him about never. I was the same guy every single day, no matter what the hell I was doing. And I would have loved to have been in peak condition and be in a place like New England where that was at a premium because everybody in there is like that. Every single receiver at the end of practice, I would pride myself on winning the sprints, winning the conditioning, being the first guy in, working the hardest, and just leaving it all on the field. Every single receiver, every single position is like that in New England because it's a standard. If you're not that, you are not there, period. So a guy like me, I loved it. It just came at the wrong time in my career, to be honest.
Now, on the opposite end, we got to talk about Cleveland for a minute.
Right.
You go to New England where it's all win, win, win.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, you were in Cleveland and you signed your deal from Cincinnati to go to Cleveland. What's that like as a team who's the perennial loser when you walk into that environment and that locker room?
My first year, I mean, I love my time in Cleveland. I'm not going to lie. Like, it was different. It was cool to be – because Cincinnati, it was kind of like – it was weird. We were good, but nobody talked about us, right? And it seemed like we were like – I don't know, kind of like a tree falling in the woods that no one was there to see, so it wasn't really making a sound. So you play in the NFL, but sometimes it didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Like, when you have a home playoff game and you don't sell it out, it's kind of like, this is weird. There should be more hoopla around this. Because, again, I grew up a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
There wasn't very many home playoff games, right? So it was a little peculiar to me that it wasn't like the city wasn't on fire when we were – 11-win seasons and hosting a home playoff game. In Cleveland, you could be 0-16, and all the city talks about is you. And there was a point where I don't care if you were losing, they're still showing up. If for nothing else, to come tell you suck. But it's a big deal. They're clinging to their Cleveland Browns. And so from that respect, it was awesome to have a city that was so passionate about their team. And the first year I was there, we started off the season 7-4. And we were number one in the division, and like that hadn't happened for a long time through 11 games in Cleveland, and it was like, yo, this is awesome. Like, I'm gonna be a part of the turnaround. And then some of the decisions were made that, we benched our starting quarterback. We put Johnny Manziel in, and we lost.
So you guys lost the last 5, didn't you?
Lost, we dropped the last 5 and didn't come close to the playoffs. And it was like, damn, like that part sucked. But at the beginning, it was like, yo, this is going to be awesome.
How did you feel as a receiver
I was
on that
pissed.
team in 7-4 and they bench your starting quarterback? Like,
I was pissed.
What's going through, like... They just go, we're making a change of quarterback, and you guys are like,
yeah, pretty
this
much.
is going to suck.
I got a call from the coach, and he was like, yo, we're thinking about changing. I kind of, good one. That's funny, because who changes a quarterback at 7-4?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's crazy. You're funny. But then they were like, yo, we're serious. But there was, like, some things going on that I don't even have all the answers to. I can speculate that were reasons for the change. But, it shouldn't happen. And Cleveland hasn't been anywhere near close since. And at the time, there was veterans there who come from other programs like me, like Carlos Dansby, like Dante Whitner. And it was like, yo, you don't make changes to a 7-4 team. I don't care if you do lose the last 5. You lose the last 5 with the guy that got you to 7-4. And I just think it was a big mistake. And that wasn't one of the only mistakes that were made as far as the on-field product. I don't feel like you should touch the on-field product at that stage in the season when we had such a good formula going. But just like we talked about with the Bengals, sometimes when you have success, you start to feel yourself a little bit and say, oh, yeah, I got this figured out. So I can do this and still be good.
Do you think that was part of the Manziel hype train? You have Brian Hoyer, your quarterback, who, doesn't have the fanfare of someone like a Manziel.
Right.
And, the crowd, I mean, when he was drafted, people in Cleveland were losing their mind. And
right.
We all know he won the Heisman and so much hype behind him.
Yeah.
I wonder do you think that played into it?
I think it definitely played into it. I think it was, first off, you don't draft a first-round quarterback that you don't expect to play, right? So once you make that determination, I'm drafting this guy in the first round.
I mean, there's investments involved.
He's your player.
Yeah, right.
You don't draft, I don't care what position. You don't draft first rounders you don't intend to play, and not like 2 years from now. You want him to play right now, right? So you're in a weird situation where Brian Hoyer, and again, I could be misquoting this, but I believe, not misquoting, but I believe he got like a contract offer in the season, like for a backup role. And, this is a guy who's from Cleveland. So he's a Browns fan. So it means a little bit more. Like, if I go play in Cincinnati, for me, it was different because I grew up a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So I wanted to win in Cincinnati. That was the best thing. Like, that was the coolest part of my career. Like, being a part of a winning team of the Cincinnati Bengals when I grew up rooting for him. So for a guy who's from Cleveland, rooting for the Browns, it's not just a check to him. You know what I mean? He's answering to uncles and cousins and, family that have root for Browns for generations, right? So they offered him a backup, and I don't think he took it. And, I think late in the season, I don't know if it was the front office or the coaching, but I think it was just like, man, we're 7-4. We offered him this deal, and he stuck to his guns. He bettered himself. If he takes the Browns to the playoffs, he's a free agent. How are we going to justify not signing the guy who took the Browns to the playoffs for the first time in X amount of years? And heaven forbid he wins a playoff game. We got to give this dude the keys to the city.
So it's a business decision.
So we have to look for the opportunity. So there was a time when, Josh Gordon had come back. He was suspended for 10 games. His first game back, we threw him the ball 20 times. And he's that kind of talent. But to be honest, he didn't know the offense at the time.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of interceptions that happened, not because of Brian was a bad quarterback, but because wires were getting crossed, because now his number one receiver is a guy he didn't have the chemistry with throughout the season. And then it carried into the next game. And then now we have 2 games where he didn't play his best, right? And then now some of the rumblings where we're putting Johnny in. So now he has that on his shoulder. And then, he ends up getting benched. We didn't get the best him for like a 2 or 3 game stretch because of all that.
To bench him.
So now it's easier to bench him. And now, okay, if nothing else, we don't have this problem of having a first-round guy that the fans love and also the hometown kid who took us to the playoffs for the first time in 16 years.
But is that in essence kind of the problem with the Browns? If you look at a team like the Seattle Seahawks, they bring in Matt Flynn and they give him all the money in the world, and they have a rookie in Russell Wilson, and right out of the gate they're like, we give this guy money, but who cares?
Yeah.
He's not the guy.
I don't think it's a Browns problem, to be honest. And I know Jimmy, and people are critical of Jimmy as well. And like I said, in sports, you can be, but it's not Jimmy Haslam. You know what I mean? It's a whoever's coming in problem. It's a general manager problem. It's a head coaching problem. It's a whatever the title is, because you come in with a plan, and you don't get that job by not selling the owner on what the plan is, and you have to stick to the plan.
Right.
So if I'm the general manager and I say, yo, we're not paying Brian Hoyer, and then the situation changes, well, now it looks like you made the wrong call, and now we're in this shitty situation. So I don't think it's a Brown. It's that there's such a pressing issue or such a pressing goal for whoever's in there to be the guy to turn it around, because you got that job by selling the turnaround. And now you have to make these drastic decisions. That's why you see so much turnover, because the new guy comes in and says, oh, this team sucks, let me turn the roster completely over. That's not the case. There are incredible starters. There's solid starters. There's good guys on the roster no matter who the hell team you inherit.
Well, the Browns get the best draft picks every year.
Every year. And it's like, yo, we draft bad. No, you don't draft bad. You've made bad first-round decisions. But the problem is you get guys like Travis Benjamin, Alex Max, Craig Robertson, the starting middle linebacker in New Orleans. You get guys like Taylor Gabriel. You get guys like, Johnson Batamosi, who's playing in the Super Bowl. And the new guys come in and say, oh, we don't need those guys. That team sucked. We're okay with letting them walk. We're letting Mitchell Schwartz leave, who is now an all-pro for the Kansas City Chiefs and was your starting right tackle and was ready to take a bad deal. Or Buster Screen, we're letting him go to the Jets. And then he becomes a solidified starter.
When guys went Bill Belichick, their mouths start watering.
Feast. And they're like, that's why everybody clamors for Browns guys, because they know they're talented. You know what I mean? It's like the new guy comes in, it's like, this roster sucks. Let me get my own guys. I'm going to win with my own guys. And we're letting guys like that walk out the door too consistently.
And people always kind of blame the Browns, like, oh, this was their bad first round decision. It's like there's 200 mock drafts that all have that guy there. So you're telling me every single person was wrong, or the Browns just didn't know how to use their talent?
Exactly. And the turnover is tough. And I think that's where Jimmy has gotten a lot better and kind of been informed. He's not trying to turn over. I think the best thing he could have done was kept Hugh Jackson. Even if Hugh Jackson comes out next year and loses 16 games, I think the process of saying, okay, we're going to stick this out every time until we know this isn't the guy or is the guy, and say, okay, well, he didn't have anybody on those 2 years in the 1-31. Those rosters were terrible. I'm just being honest with you. They weren't, not like from a pure talent standpoint, but they're too young. Like, you can go get the best 53 college football players right now, put them in the NFL, and they would go 0-16. Does that mean they're not talented?
Right.
Of course not. 4 years from now, that would be the best NFL team. But as it stands, they're playing grown men. They don't understand being a professional, so they will not be able to beat any team in the NFL. And I think that's what you've seen with the Hugh Jackson squads, is that when you have 30 rookies on an active roster, you're not going to be able to go in there and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're not going to be able to beat the Baltimore Ravens and Terrell Suggs and all these guys who have been doing it at a high level for so long. So I think now that they have a new guy.
Isn't the counterpoint to that we talked about before, the top of the heap to the bottom of the heap in the NFL is a pretty small window, and there's a lot of parity in any given Sunday. Mm-hmm. And if you're the coach that's meant to be here, and you're even with the 30 rookies, shouldn't you be able to sneak 3 wins? Shouldn't you be able to be the team that 3 other teams look past?
No,
a year.
Absolutely not.
No,
not with that. Not with,
because how come you don't?
Not
see
with record amount of rookies.
Right.
Not with record, because you don't see that many young guys lead. Like, we let go of incredible talent, and not only that, the NFL it's more mental than people realize. It's more experience is really a premium. You ask, like, how can a 5'7" guy come in and be? I'm 6'4" and other. It's because I'm a smarter football player than people. I'm not. That's how I do it. Right. It's not like, yes, I have I'm quick, I'm smart. I mean, I'm quick and I'm fast, but at the same time, I understand the game of football. So I could get by in the NFL. Your first 3 or 4 years, you get by because you're physically the best you can possibly be. And in that time, you gain experience. So that's why the next 3 to 4 years of everybody's career is their best, because now they have the experience and physically they're still peaking. And then that's why past those 3 to 4 years, you then rely on your smarts. So it's guys like myself who can play after 28 till I'm 32 and be pretty good because, like I told you, I can spot man or zone like that. I can beat a DB because he's just looking at, me versus you, and I'm thinking, oh, man, I see that safety. I'm not getting the ball here anyway. I'm going to save my energy. Oh, this play's coming. I know it's me because it's cover 2, and this is it. So now I can burst, boom, boom, boom. I'm smarter than you. Like, so when you have a team that's all physical, there's no experience. There is no, third down in the fourth quarter, I got to make this catch because I got to feed my kids. And also, to your point, when you run veterans out of the locker room, The NFL is, I'm a guy who comes from the CFL. When I come from the CFL, I got cut my first day of my first team at the St. Louis Rams. Drove 13 hours there, 13 hours home. So from then on,
Is that Jeff Fisher?
that was Spags.
Okay.
That was Spags. So from then on, every day I realized I could get cut any moment, which means every single practice was a game to me because it mattered that much. And I understood that if I got cut, I couldn't feed my family. When you bring rookies in who may be more physically talented at the time, but they're not better professionals than the guy you have on board. They're not better than Taylor Gabriels. They're not better than Paul Krugers. They're not the best option, but you still cut those guys and give it to the rookies. Now the rookie thinks this is like college. I'm on scholarship. And it's okay. I don't have to work as hard in practice because I just got a job over a guy that was probably better than me right now because I was drafted. I got the scholarship. He had to go. I'm here. And then in the games, in the fourth quarters, in the third downs, when those close games, you say, how come we can't sneak 3 or 4 wins? Well, when it comes to third down and 3 and we need a first down to prevent the next team from getting the ball back, there's not a same sense of urgency. Like a guy like me who says, yo, if I drop this third down, I may never earn another dollar playing football, and I can't afford to pay for my kids' tuition. I can't, get that house. I'm not going to get that contract. And if there's not that sense of urgency, the play doesn't happen. It's simple as that.
You brought this up, talking about being a smart football player. And I've talked about this with specifically Tom Brady and the Patriots, and it makes sense that's how you end up there in a Patriots uniform at some point. But people have always, it's part of the Tom Brady lore that he's done it with nobody, his no-name receivers, and this guy, look at Edelman, he's so short, and these white guys, and they're slow. And to me, I've always said, I think they want the smart guy who's going to do it right. They can give up a little bit of the freak athletic talent for a guy who's going to run it the right way. Is that how a guy like you ends up there? And is that kind of their method?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I mean, when you go to New England, like they work you out. They do all the things that like you do in a regular workout, and then they bring you into the office and they sit there and talk football with you for like 20 minutes. And that's rare. People don't do that. But it's because if you're not to the level we need you intellectually as a football player, you can't play here. Listen, I got a 4.0 at Columbia. I have an Ivy League master's. I am a smart guy, right? I'm not saying that to be cocky.
I mean, you're
or anything.
here today, so everybody knows that.
Exactly.
Like look where you are.
So I like playbooks.
I can't even spell Columbia for that.
I can learn playbooks in my sleep. Like there have been times, I kid you not, I've gotten a playbook one day, I know all the plays the next day. Simple as like it's that easy for me to pick up because I know football and because I can retain information relatively quickly. I got to the Patriots and I was there for 3 months and I still hadn't, like I would learn the plays, I would study them and I would stay up all night and then I would watch it the next day in practice. I would watch Tom and Julian or I would watch Tom and Amendola and I could not figure out like why that play call was this and it registered this play in my mind, but it looks completely different on the field. Well, it's because they are such smart football players. They're like on the same wave path. It's a chemistry thing. Like it's not even about like learning the playbook in New England. It's about can you get on the same page as Tom Brady to where he says Hut, you guys are looking at the defense and you're seeing the same audible without him verbalizing it to you. It's almost like, yo, I know what Tom is thinking here because we run this so much and we've studied it and we know it so intently and we can process this information better and faster than the guys who think they're running it and boom. That's why Dola is as good as he is.
That's why I've always said about Brady. People always, like I said, it's part of the lore. People want to go, oh, imagine what he would have done with this guy.
Yeah,
It's like he's only doing what he's doing because of these guys.
Exactly.
Because they're on his wavelength.
Exactly. If you don't have the chemistry with Tom, you will not be there.
It's why they haven't. The big time receivers sort of come and gone there.
Come and gone. I mean, Randy Moss is a lot smarter than you think, and he was that much better than people that he can just run by him and Tom can hit him.
Yeah.
That as well, but.
That's why
guys like
Ocho
Cinco
records in a season.
Ocho Cinco to me is a Hall of Fame talent. I think if he wouldn't have bounced around, he would have stayed in Cincinnati and the rift. He would have probably played another 6-7 years. They wouldn't have gotten rid of him. He would have retired there. He would have retired with probably 14,000, 15,000 plus receiving yards. He would have put a statue in Cincinnati. The fact that he put Cincinnati on the map the way he did, like he's a marketing genius. He was the first guy to like really start to monetize his kind of personality. But the worst thing he could have possibly did was leave Cincinnati because they loved him. It was an incredible thing. And I bet you I would argue that he would agree. He got to New England. Not that he wasn't good enough. It was the fact that he couldn't get on that same page. And if you're not on that same page, Tom can't use you. I'll use an undrafted guy who can understand and be on my page before I can use a guy who, like I said, I think eventually could have been a Hall of Fame receiver.
Well, look, I know you're on a time crunch. You're a busy man. What's on the plate today for you? What's going on?
A little bit of everything, man. I got, we're filming some TV stuff with LeBron, a show called The Shop. So I'll be on set there watching that happen. I work with Maverick Carter and LeBron on the business development side and doing things there. And, we got a couple events later on, a couple of meetings, just running all over the place, man.
And you got your podcast.
Got the Tomahawk podcast, Forbes 30 Under 30.
Killing it.
Yeah, Pulitzer Prize winner. What else do we get?
I
People's Choice Award, Oscars. And
when we first met you on the set, and now we're talking, we didn't even know that the podcast was coming. I feel like
it's funny because I didn't either.
Sort of blessed you guys with the podcast.
Yeah,
a little bit of that podcast feeling. Now you're killing us.
How did that come about? If you haven't listened to it, you guys got to check it out.
Yeah,
him and Joe Thomas. It's amazing. You guys, I love it because you're not scared to quote unquote go there.
Exactly.
You talk about things, especially as former professional athletes. I think a lot of guys are scared to say things.
Yes.
But you guys say it. How did this whole thing come about?
Well, I think, we would have these incredible talks in the locker room, and, we're kind of polar opposite, but anytime you can talk about issues and have open minds and have an incredible discussion, and Joe would always raise these points like, well, what about this? And I'm like, I didn't think of that. But did you think of this? And he would be like, okay. And then we would kind of, just play this game all the time. And it got to the point where, as I alluded to later in my career in the Browns, we were like one of the only like 3 30-plus guys, and all the other guys were like 21 years old. And so it would just be us hanging out, an O-lineman and a receiver. And that's basically how the Tomahawk was born. And like within like a 5-day period of sort of saying, like, let's do a podcast. Everything kind of just happened fast, and here we are today.
And you guys are
I don't buy all that chemistry. I think there was just Tama and Hawk, and that's the only way it goes together.
That was actually the last part. Like there was actually some pushback in that name. I'm like, no, it's perfect. What are you talking about?
Whoever pushed back.
Exactly.
They did not know what they're talking about.
It's a perfect name.
Yeah.
And that's on Uninterrupted.
It's on Uninterrupted Network. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah. I got to ask you before you go, one last question. I mean, come on, the serious Cincinnati question. Skyline or Gold Star?
I got to go Skyline.
Why do you go Skyline?
Because I don't know. I when I got, like, being young, that was the first place that I went, and I just kind of clung to it. And so it was like, it's like Burger King, McDonald's. Like, whatever you went to first is your thing. Coke or Pepsi,
I got
Skyline was just my thing, and I just stuck with it.
I'm not mad at that. I prefer Gold Star, even though I worked at Skyline.
You look like a Gold Star guy.
yeah.
I like it thick. Well, guys, you got to check out the Tomahawk Show with Andrew Hawkins, where all podcasts are available. Of course, follow you on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk, which I love. You own
at Hawk.
Yeah, did that cost you money? Did you have to buy that number?
No, man. I lucked into it a couple times. Knew a guy who knew a guy, so I got it on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And actually, whoever owns at Hawk on Snapchat hit me up like 2 days ago, like, "Hey, you want this?"
Oh, nice.
I'm like, "Yeah, yes, I do." So I could pull off the 4 for 4.
Well, cool. Well, and I know you got so much going. And you host on Snapchat. You host the Sports Center.
Yep, Sports Center on Snapchat.
On Snapchat,
which is it's like a digital version of Sports Center. We have a lot of fun with it. I make a lot of jokes, make fun of people. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but
it's not long before Snapchat Sports Center is
it's like the flagship.
Yeah, exactly. The flagship Sports Center.
Exactly.
So you're ahead of the game.
Well, Hawk, thanks for making time for us, and we'll have to do it again. We didn't even get into the Canadian Football League.
We have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to hear what happens with the Grey Cup.
Every question's the same, right? It's like, so the field's wider.
Yeah, exactly. Only 3 downs.
You run more reverses, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks, man. We'll do it again soon. And guys, go support him and all the things he's got going on.
Appreciate it, guys.
Cool.